Welcome, everyone. I am Gretchen Howard. I am one of the partners at Capital G, which is Alphabet's growth equity investing fund. And I have the privilege and honor of introducing you to my friend, Jian-Yang. Come on down. I'm going to give you a hug.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, gang. Thanks for coming out, everybody. I appreciate that. Is there a dog here?
Yes, there is.
Aww.
So Google has a dog open door policy. So Jimmy wrote a book recently. It's called How to American. We're gonna have a little chat here, and then we'll open it up to questions. And just as a little incentive, if you don't have the book already, those who ask questions will be the first to get your very own copy of the book.
Ooh! So exciting. I'll be signing and taking pictures afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna start in the beginning.
Hi.
You're born in Hong Kong.
Uh-huh.
Tell me about that. So let's start there.
Yeah, I was born in Hong Kong, and I moved to LA when I was 13.
In 2000.
In 2000. That was after like the handoff from the British colony back to China, right? And I think there was a lot of worry there. It's probably one of the reasons why our family moved here. And when I first came, I couldn't really speak English very well, kind of like Jian-Yang, you know. And I'd learned English in Hong Kong how kids here would learn Spanish.
Right.
So it's not very well. And like I didn't understand like the simplest slangs like what's up. Like they don't teach you that in school. Like what's up, you know, right? And eventually I learned a lot of English by watching BET Rap City. That was like my thing. So yeah, and then it just progressed from there.
But even before you moved to LA, let me see if I get this straight. Your parents were originally from Shanghai.
That's true.
So they spoke Shanghainese.
We speak Shanghainese back home, and then I learned Cantonese from school.
Okay.
So I speak Cantonese in school, and then I'll watch shows in Mandarin.
So no wonder you're confused.
Very, yeah. And then English somewhere came along.
So how did that even feel as a kid, even before you got to the U.S., not knowing how to speak really good English, just being in Hong Kong, but having parents who came from the mainland?
Yeah, I was kind of already the foreign kid, because whenever I speak to my parents, they'll be like, oh, that's the Shanghai boy right there. You know, there's like a internal almost hierarchy and a semi-racism within Chinese people. Like Hong Kong people always think they're better than other, you know, mainland China people, you know, and so they always call me like the Shanghai boy. And so maybe that was like my first experience of assimilation, which really came in handy later when I came to America, when I was actually the foreign kid.
Already sort of felt like an outsider in Hong Kong. Okay, so you get to the U.S., you're in L.A. Mm-hmm. What's your first day in the U.S.? What happens?
It was just complete culture shock, you know, because Hong Kong is like Manhattan. You got like buildings 25 stories high. It's a concrete jungle. And then you came to L.A., the streets are like 6 lanes wide. Everything was just like a 2-story strip mall. And you walk down the streets, nobody in the street. So it's like, where am I? You know, it's like, is this Mad Max or what's going on? And the first day, my grandpa took us to his favorite American restaurant. We walked 45 minutes down the street. First of all, we passed by Pizza Hut. And that was my favorite restaurant in Hong Kong. Because Pizza Hut in Hong Kong is like a gourmet restaurant with like seafood pasta and like real like gourmet soups and stuff, you know. And I saw the real authentic American version, and it was just like a hole in the wall with an oven. I'm like, what is this? How is the real version worse than the foreign version? I was panicking.
So where did Grandpa take you?
And then Grandpa, it was like, this is my favorite American restaurant. We arrived at this strip mall, and it was El Pollo Loco. It was a Mexican fast food place, but it was amazing. And then it was like the first time I experienced like American freedom inside of El Pollo Loco. Because if you think about it, they give you so many choices. There's dark meat and white meat, which my grandpa was like, don't ever order the white meat. That's dry and rough. That's for American idiots, okay? You get the dark meat. There's corn tortilla and flour tortilla. You get the flour tortilla because the corn tastes funny. And then, you know, you get a glass of water, and you can go to the soda machine and get whatever you want.
Not exactly exactly how it works.
And then you can go to the salsa bar and just get whatever you want, you know? Get some onions and cilantro. You can go home and saute that stuff for some dish later. It's freedom, people.
All right. So after you ate your little chicken taco, you go to middle school in
Yeah.
LA, and you go to John Burroughs, right?
Yes, John Burroughs is it's inside of LA Unified School District, so it's very diverse. It's the first time I ever met a black person, a white person, a Latino person in real life, because in Hong Kong, obviously, all you had was Chinese people in my school. And it was crazy, because I'd seen this different types of people on TV, but I never met them.
Yeah.
And I was 13. I was about, I don't know, like 4'10", really scrawny little kid with glasses. And like, I just remember the first day, I was pretty good at basketball back home in Hong Kong. And then when I came, I was in 8th grade. This kid, Marquise, was like dunking. And I'm like, yo, like, this is what America's about? Like, it was crazy to me, you know? And then I saw this Latino kid, he had a mustache. I couldn't even grow any hair at that point. It was complete culture shock. And I was just, you know, my English wasn't that good, so I was just trying to fit in.
I thought you were a ping pong star back in Hong Kong, which
That was
is so stereotypical.
Back
but,
in the
like,
day, I was
you
very
bring those-
stereotypical growing up in Hong Kong. I play the violin. I was pretty good at math. And I play ping pong competitively. But that seems like a stereotype here, but in Hong Kong, you're just another dude. That's just what people do. It's like playing catch.
Did you bring your skills, though, to the middle school? Did you show them
No,
off?
nobody cared about ping pong. Maybe until college, when it became like a beer pong
Beer
game.
pong.
But that's a whole different
We're not there yet. We're
skill
in middle
set.
school, yeah.
Yeah.
So middle school, is this when your BET love affair with
I
television
think it
started?
started. I remember like the first day of school, people were telling me like to sag my pants. Like I'm in the locker room changing in my PE clothes, and the kids are like, "Hey, put your shorts down." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what is going on here in LA?" And apparently it's a culture of sagging your pants back in the early 2000s. You know, that looks cool. If you pull it all the way up, they call you John Stockton.
So how far did you pull them down?
Pull it all the way down to my knees, and they're like, "No, don't do that." And even underwears, there's different, like people wear boxers here. In Hong Kong, we wear like tighty whities, and people made fun of me for that, you know? So I learned a lot, not just about the language, but culture from, you know, watching BET.
Right.
Yeah.
And then how was it, so you're middle school, then you go to Beverly Hills High School, right?
Yeah, my dad was a genius. He used a fake address for me to go.
Jimmy's dad is right here.
Yeah.
Stand up.
Yeah, he's
Say
not
hi
just-
to Jimmy's dad.
Oldest Googler in the building. Yeah. And the subtitle of the book, the title is How to American, an Immigrant's Guide to Disappointing Your Parents. So here we are.
So what we're going to talk about, you're still not quite in the disappointment phase in high school, right? That's more of college?
Yeah. I'm still the good Asian kid then. I got to disappointing them later.
So who did you hang out with in high school?
It's a group of kids. I wanted to hang out with. I wanted to find like a group of Chinese kids I can kind of really hang on to. You know, when you don't really know the language, you know, you kind of long for that. You know, something that reminds you back home. But there wasn't really a lot of Chinese kids in high school, so I ended up just hanging out with a bunch of random misfits, right? Like I had a couple Persian friends, a friend from Bangladesh, and then a friend, one Chinese friend, and then a Korean immigrant friend. So it was a great group of different people, and we just kind of, we're never the cool kids, but we also weren't like super lame. We just kind of never fit in with any particular group. We weren't the skaters, we weren't the athletes or anything like that, you know?
But you started to find your people.
I started to find my people, and I started a rap group. That's what happens when you watch too much BET.
Do a little of that rap for us
I
right
can't.
now?
No, I was horrible.
Just a little?
No, what I did, I eventually I knew I was a horrible rapper, so I recruited my buddies, you know, who can rap, and I just made the beats, right? And that was like my first creative outlet. It was me, my black friend Julian, and then my other friend Yuji, who was half black and half Japanese. So it was perfectly 1.5 Asian guys and 1.5 black guys. And we called the rap group the Yellow Panthers. It was very embarrassing. Yeah.
Did you ever sell one of your songs?
I sold maybe a couple bootleg CDs in school. Like we would just burn CDs. You guys remember that? When you burn, it takes 30 minutes to burn a CD, and then you sell it for like $5 to some kids.
There wasn't like a porn site that bought one of your songs or something?
What are you talking about? My first paycheck I really made in show business was from a website called fudgestick.com. This is true. Okay, don't look it up. It's not a thing anymore. It used to be a site, a porno site, and I used to post my beats that I made online. And this guy called me one day. He was like, "Hey, are you Doc West?" That was my beat maker name. Which is like the wackest name ever, right? Doc West. It's like from Dr. Dre and Kanye West. I just combined the two and called myself Doc. It's horribly hacky. And he called. He was like, "Hey, so are you Christian?" I'm like, "Not really. Why? What's up?" He's like, "Well, so I'm in the adult entertainment business, and a lot of Christian people aren't down with what I'm doing. And my name's LeBron James." That was his name. Not LeBron James. LeBron James. And he was like, I like one of your beats, and can I use it for a trailer for one of my pornos?" So I sold it to him. My first paycheck.
All right, so a little short-lived music career. You go to college, UCSD?
UC San Diego. Let's try.
Oh, we've got some in the house.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. One of the most boring places I've ever been. Did you like it?
I did.
You did like it? Oh, good. What did you guys study? Like engineering, computer science, or something? Good. Oh, at least you guys studied something you guys liked. Economics. How'd you end up here? Imposter. I'm kidding. So am I. I study economics also. And here I am.
But you didn't, is that what your dad wanted you to major in?
He wanted me like something legitimate, right? What Asian parents would consider legitimate is like engineering, science. So I went in as a mechanical engineering major, and I realized I would never graduate. So then I went into economics, which is like the easiest major that is still approved by Asian parents. Right, man? You know, he was a financial advisor, so you know that's what it is. And so I did it for 5 years. It took me 5 years to graduate with an economics degree, which is very sad. And I didn't.
A lot of extracurricular activities.
Yeah, you know, smoking a little too much weed my freshman year. I was just trying to not be grouped in because there's so many Asian people in UCSD, right? It was like the first time I came to America that Asian was the majority once again. But now I have a different identity crisis because now I don't want to be grouped in as the other. Because I'm like, dude, I listen to Jay-Z, man. Like I'm Doc West, you know what I mean? Like I don't, like you know, I'm cool. So when you're younger, you don't want to be grouped in with some. When you hit that age, that college age, you don't want to be grouped in. So I try to do other stuff, and for some reason, as twisted as this logic sound, it kind of made sense to me. Was if you just smoke enough weed, you would transcend being just the Asian kid. You will be the stoner kid. You know what I mean? And for me, in my mind, somehow that's better. Sorry, Dad. But.
So did you not hang out with any other Asian kids there?
No, I did. I mean, that's my only option in UCSD, and it was fine. But it was like maybe other Asian stoner kids. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, when I graduated after 5 years, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just know I didn't want to do economics.
Right.
You know, I had an internship at Smith Barney that my dad hooked me up with. It was like one of the really nice financial firms. I don't know if you guys know about this. Smith Barney. I mean, it just sounds nice, too. You know? I think it's part of Morgan Stanley now or something. But like I just sitting behind the desk, I was just like, oh my God, I'm gonna do this for the next 40 years, looking at some other people's mutual funds. I was having like a panic attack.
Yeah.
I mean that actually sounds attractive to a lot of people. To like, you know, the safety of having a nice job like that. But to me, it just didn't appeal to me. So.
But that's hard. I mean, your dad got you this job.
Yeah.
He helped you go to college, right? Yeah. He was there for you. He really like raised you a lot through your teenage years, right? Because your mom went back to Shanghai.
Yeah.
So Papa over here, and all of a sudden you tell him you don't want to do the job that he got you. I mean, how did you...
And that's when I disappointed him.
How did you get up the courage, though, to have that conversation with him?
It was hard, man, because you don't ever want to disappoint your parents, especially they've done so much for you, right? Like, they came to this country for you, for your education, got you in school, right? Faked an address to get me into Beverly Hills High School. I mean, come on. And then I'm gonna tell them I don't want to do this job, you know, and do what? I don't know, like stand up. And it was hard, but I figured it was probably better to disappoint my parents for a couple years than to disappoint myself for the rest of my life. So that's why I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this job. And I went through a journey after that, you know, of finding what I wanted to do.
Right.
I didn't think stand-up was going to be a career. It was just something I found that, you know, it was a friendship that I found in stand-up with other comedians and a camaraderie.
Right.
And something to do even, you know, just a community so I don't feel as stuck. But I tried other things, you know, like I had 3 jobs when I graduated. I sold used cars during the day. This was on San Diego. And then I'll go to work at the Comedy Palace, working the door, collecting tickets. And then in exchange, I'll get a couple minutes of stage time doing stand-up. And then at night, I became a strip club DJ. And
so let's talk about that, because your boss's name was Shooter?
Yeah, his shooter. I don't know why. I probably shot somebody. Who knows? It was a very gangster, like, seedy strip club. And when you're like 22, you think working at a strip club is like the coolest thing, right? Especially when you watch too much music videos. But it wasn't. It was like, I soon realized nobody in that strip club actually wanted to work there.
Right.
They were there because they've been to prison a few times and they have to work there now.
Right.
And everybody got nicknames like Shooter. The bouncer's name was Beast. He used to be in the Aryan Brotherhood back in prison, so he probably wasn't too hot on me working there.
Right.
And yeah, it wasn't that great of an environment, but I try to be professional, you know.
That's all we're gonna talk about that. Okay, but back to your stand-up. It sounded like when you were taking tickets at the door, you actually had some people who became really good friends and also advisors. So Sean Kelly, was that?
Sean Kelly,
Talk
a
to me
good friend
about
of
him.
mine. He kind of became my mentor. I think that's one of the most important things. It's finding like a good mentor and not afraid to ask somebody to be a mentor and really, you know.
How'd you meet him? Who is he?
Yeah, so he was the guy that started the Comedy Palace. He was like a businessman and a comedian. And everybody in San Diego was like, yo, if you want stage time, you need to talk to Sean Kelly. I'm like, who's Sean Kelly? Is that like Dave Chappelle's cousin or something? Like, I don't know. And he turned out just to be like this brilliant businessman that really helped me along my career. Yeah, he was the one, I guess, in the beginning, he was like, man, you know, you got such a unique story with immigration, you know? Like, and you're wasting your time talking about, like, hacky, like, masturbation jokes. Don't do that. Every other comic can do that, but you have your own story. You should develop this material, eventually write a book about it, and then, you know, you can do talks, you can do whatever. And look at me! And he was the one that talked me out of working that strip club. He was like, yo, Jimmy, you're funny, man. You gotta move to LA before this gets like, you know, into like a point of no return. So, yeah, finding that mentor is extremely important.
I love that he pushed you in that direction, because there's one part in the book where Terrell and Guam, who seem to be good friends of yours, who are also...
Yeah, they're two comics. Yeah.
But it sounded like, you know, they had a more lively sex life than you did at this time.
Right.
And so they were incorporating all that into their stand-up, and you were like...
I wanted to do that.
Right, but it wasn't authentic, right?
Yeah.
So Sean somehow saw that in you, not, you know, and made you tell your real story. So how did that change your comedy?
It's great. I think it's still evolving. When you first start as a comedian, you're not funny, right? Nobody's funny when they first start. You just try to do jokes that you've seen on TV and your own remix of that. You know, a lot of, like I said, masturbation jokes, or like, and then you graduate to some like self-deprecating Asian jokes or something like that. And then eventually you're able to become more vulnerable and talk about, you know, the immigration stories that I have, right? Like that I wrote in the book, and I'm really happy to kind of use some of that material. And that's material people can't even steal, and it's just your thing, right? So I think that's what I'm trying to strive to doing, because that's what some of my favorite comedians did. You know, Chappelle, George Lopez has great, family stories and like him being a Mexican American in America. So I want to do more of that.
Right. So how did you then make that jump from doing stand-up to then going to LA, getting an agent? Like, talk me through that shift.
Oh man, I just wanted to do stand-up. My goal was to get a college agent. I can make like $2,000 a week doing college shows, right? But then things started to unfold, and I went back to LA. I was living in this dude's living room from Craigslist for $300 because I didn't want to move back to my dad's as a failure.
Right.
So
You're on
it
the
was just
couch?
struggling. I was just trying to make ends meet. I was hoping to book a commercial, because a commercial you can make like thousands of dollars with one day of work, with residuals. So that was what I was hoping for. So I signed up, put my headshots up on all those websites, like desperately seeking for an agent. And then the first agent I met with, a commercial agent, I was like, oh man, this is going to be great. This is going to change my life. And I drove up, I pulled up. It was at an apartment rental office.
Oh, jeez.
It wasn't even an agency. I walked into an apartment building. And then he had me like read the Staples commercial, right? It's like Staples, where all the folks, da, 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 da. And I was so bad, the apartment rental agency rejected me. They're like, oh, we're fine, we don't need you. And I was like almost about to give up on that. And then I found another small agent that kind of took a chance on me. And she started sending me out on auditions that were like beyond my goals at that time, even not just commercials, but like Modern Family, just like 2 lines here and there. And I couldn't, I guess I learned some timing from doing stand-up, but I had never taken acting classes, so I wasn't very good. And then eventually, I spent a lot of money on like acting classes, and I got my first part on Two Broke Girls. It was just like 2 lines.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like the epitome of acting. Like, it was amazing, And then from then, the 2-line part, and then I got another 2-line part, got like a part on Always Sunny, with a few more lines.
And what type of characters were they? You getting cast in?
It's different. One of my favorite parts in the book is this audition log I have, right? It's the 101 auditions that I went on before I got my 102nd audition, which was Silicon Valley. So let me see here if I can find a good section. Where's that log? Oh, here you go. There's 100. It's all these auditions. I used to meticulously keep a log, and I got on Silicon Valley. I'm like, no, okay, I'm fine. But it's a lot of like stereotypical roles. Like my first like few parts, it's that I auditioned for. I didn't get it. It's like loud Japanese host, Taiwanese 20, looks like 12, computer geek. Tucker, ethnic friend. Right? It's like these 2-line parts. This is one of my favorite parts. Like looking at these parts, I'm like, oh my god! Like I used to dream about getting these roles. You know what I mean?
Right.
And really, Silicon Valley started off as a 2-line part also. Like it was when Jian-Yang opened the door and was like, "This is Pied Piper." Like that was the 2 lines that kind of started it. And then they wrote the fish scene after, and then something else. And then by season 2, I became a series regular. So like I felt like I snuck in the back door, and it was just amazing.
So even that first season, you were still trying to pay the rent, trying to make it work.
I got paid $900 per episode. $900. That's the SAG minimum wage. Okay, that's the lowest they can pay an actor, and that's what most people get paid in Hollywood when you're just starting out. So I was in 3 episodes in the first season. And I had maybe like 5 words total. And I was paid, what, like $2,700, with maybe residuals $3,000 at the end of the day. And I was still super broke. I actually drove Uber between season 1 and season 2 of Silicon Valley. But nobody recognized me then, And I used that $2,700 as down payment for like a 2006 Prius. And then that's how I, could sustain myself. And when I got a call to be a series regular on season 2, it was life-changing. Like I knew that was the moment. I was like, oh my God, everything's about to change.
Awesome. So let's talk about Mike Judd then, because he's obviously been a big influence on you.
Mike Judd, my guy who wrote the foreword on this book. Yeah.
And the first time you ever heard him speak was, besides Beavis and Butthead?
It was at UCSD. Mike Judd was my commencement speaker when I graduated. How crazy is that? 2009. He was the campus-wide commencement speaker. I was very hungover that day.
But you went.
I almost didn't go, and then my buddy convinced me. He's like, "Oh, come on, man, just go." You know, like he did like Beavis and Butthead. He's the Beavis and Butthead guy and the King of the Hill guy. I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll go. And then his story like really spoke to me because I was really lost at the time. And he was saying that he was a physics major in UCSD, and he was working in Silicon Valley in the late '80s, making computer chips for fighter jets, I believe. Yeah. And he said he just didn't like it, you know. And eventually he became a touring musician, and then from then he found his passion in an animated studio, and that's how he made Beavis and Butthead. It was an amazing story. It was a story that I kind of never allowed myself to have growing up in an Asian family. My dad always told me that if you pursue your dreams, that's how you become homeless. Artists are homeless people. So he never like I was never allowed to kind of have that dream thing, right? That's a very American thing, and that's what a big theme in the book is. It's in Asian culture, you're supposed to be obedient, follow the rules, be a good son. In American culture, you're supposed to be an independent man, go pursue your dreams, pursue your happiness. So how do you kind of, I'm sure a lot of Asian people here could relate to this, or even anyone. It's like, which side do I go to? Because they're exact polar opposites, right? And I think deep down I always want to be that artist person, but I did go through the route even throughout college of trying to just be the good son, right? And then the Mike Judge speech like really spoke to me. I'm like, man, this dude didn't know anything about Hollywood, but he was able to make it. So that kind of gave me a little extra motivation to go pursue stand-up and whatever I loved. And 5 years later, he had no idea I was sitting in the audience. I just went into an audition for the part, and I got the part. And the first day at table read, I told him, I was like, Mike, you're my commencement speaker, man. Thanks. So that was a pretty cool moment. And Mike's like a very calm, quiet guy. He's like, yeah, cool, yeah, okay. So,
he majored in economics too, and he turned out all right. So I think you're fine.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
So now you're on Silicon Valley full time. How do you reconcile? You have your own sort of immigrant story, and then there's the story of your character. How do you think about that? How do you prepare for that? Like, what do you draw from your own experiences? What do you draw from?
Absolutely. I think it all came full circle that I'm able to kind of use my past story into building the Jian-Yang character, because he's basically a version of myself 15 years ago, kind of muttering around, kind of can't understand a lot of things, and in a way being kind of bullied by TJ's character, Erlich. But he's not stupid, so he can kind of come back with like some like just really deadpan factual, trash talk that you don't see coming.
Do you have a favorite comeback line?
Well, I remember, so when I was younger, when I first came here, like, people talk trash to me, right? And when you're young, like when you're 13, people was like, hey, your mom's fat, like, ha, whatever. And I'll be like, no, she's a skinny Chinese woman. Like, whatever. So that's a very Jian-Yang moment in a way. And I think one of my favorite things in Silicon, there's so many favorite moments with me and TJ. I just love working with him. One of my favorite scenes personally is when we walk into the mansion party. We try to get into the Muir Woods project. Yeah. And we just constantly keep trying to throw each other under the bus. We did a ton of improv there too. One of the things was like when TJ was like, "Can we just go in and just take one quick lap?" He doesn't even eat, and I said, "Yes, I'm very hungry." Like that's stuff like that. And then there's another take where I just started naming off different food that I see inside. I was like, "Oh, Korean barbecue, like spaghetti, meatballs." Like it was just so much going on in that scene. That was the first time that me and TJ had the whole scene to ourselves, right. And the whole background and setting. So that was really fun, and I think that was the day that we discovered. I was like, oh man, we do have there's something special there.
Yeah. So in this season, obviously TJ's not on, or we're not quite sure where he is. So how do you find
smoking opium in Tibet?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you find your rhythm not having him to go back and forth with?
Yeah, he's one of my best friends. I think him and Mike are my two best friends on the show. So it was really sad to hear him go. He called me like at midnight one night, and he was like, I'm not coming back for the next season. And I was like shocked. I'm like, oh my God. So that means whatever the last scene we did was going to be our last scene together. So I was like really sad about it. But, I think it turned out to be kind of a blessing in disguise. The writers have to think of more creative ways to kind of, build out the show without TJ. And also for me, I get to interact with some other cool people and kind of be a pain in the ass to other people, which is really fun. Yeah, so I'm
You're running
excited.
the incubator now, right?
Yeah, you know, I'm trying. We'll see how it develops, and I get to interact with a lot more people, and even I think one of my favorite actors, Matt Ross, who plays Gavin Belson.
Yeah.
So I get to do some stuff with him, and it'll be fun.
And another cool project, Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes. Are you guys familiar with that? Have you guys read the book or anything? Yeah. So it was an international bestseller, a book that's a satire on billionaires in Singapore and that culture, and they turn it into a movie, and it's the first studio movie in 25 years since Joy Luck Club that features a full Asian cast.
Wow.
So this is like our Black Panther.
Not the Yellow Panthers. Yeah.
Not the Yellow Panthers. Yeah. Well, basically the Yellow Panthers. Yeah, so we just shot it in Singapore last year. It's coming out in August, and it's a really good movie. And the experience of that was amazing because as Asians in Hollywood, I don't know, different art forms, like a lot of times on any set, we're the only person on there. And now there's an added weight of now the scrutinies on YouTube represent Asian people, right?
Right.
So, and you're always looked at as the Asian dude. No matter what, right? It's always Asian dash something. It could be the Asian leading man, Asian asshole, Asian funny guy, or whatever, right? But shooting this movie, it was great. It was in Singapore, where the most talented, most beautiful, funniest Asian people are all in one room trying to make this movie, and the pressure is just kind of off of you. Like you're not just a token Asian dude on the set. You can do your job, like me as the funny character, Constance Wu, Henry Golding as like the lead character, the romantic lead, and we just kind of handed off the baton. And it was the first time in Hollywood that I felt white. And it felt great. It felt so good.
Are we okay to open it up for some questions?
Yeah, for sure.
right.
Let's get to some questions.
So we actually have a mic right there if you guys want to we're live streaming, so we're going to need you guys to talk into the mic, so if you can line up back there. And we also have a dory if you guys want to ask anything in the dory as well. So just state your name and then the question.
Hey, Jimmy. I'm Vince. Thanks for coming out. Writing that book. It's awesome hearing that story. I was curious. I love your role in Silicon Valley, and there's some cringeworthy, semi-stereotypical Asian moments. I'm wondering how you reconcile that with yourself, having lived through that.
Yeah, I think it teeters the line of being a stereotypical character and then portraying an immigrant character and humanizing it, right? I know a lot of, especially American-born Asian actors that don't even, they wouldn't even audition for a part that has like an accent or something. And for me, I kind of disagree with that. Because I was the kid that was foreign. I was the kid with an accent. So my job is not to judge that, but to portray them in a humanizing, funny way to make them look better. I think that's more important than shunning those people out. Because one of the most painful things when I first came here wasn't the fact that, say black people, Latino, or white people didn't accept me. Because I was the foreign kid. I expected that. But one of the most painful things was the American-born Asian people didn't accept me. Because they didn't want to be grouped in as like a fob, as like the fresh off the boat guy, So I kind of feel pretty strongly about that, where I want to make immigrants just as appealing and just as sexy and just as funny as a perfectly English-speaking person, and I think that's important to me.
All right. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for repping the
Thank you.
Pobs.
We're going to alternate one live and one dory question. So,
Okay, cool.
All right. The next question is, do you have any thoughts on effect arts and artists, TV included, they have on the perception of the immigrant
population? It's kind of the
especially
same
modern
question,
day
yeah.
US. Yeah.
Anything else? What is your relationship like
TJ.
with Erlich Tj Miller in real life? He's a good friend of mine, and we really got along. I think we got the same sense of humor and stuff. I was if I felt pretty good about it. He said I was the first one he called, when he decided to not do Silicon Valley. We hang out every now and then. He's in New York now, so we don't get to hang out as much. But I took him to a showing of Patriots Day, a movie I was in. and
The Boston
about the
Marathon?
Boston Marathon bombing. And then after the movie, TJ was like standing up, clapping. And then he just like announced to the theater, like, guys, this is my friend Jian-Yang. He was the kid in the movie. Please, everybody clap. So he got a big personality. Like, he is kind of that guy in real life, but I love him. He's awesome. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for coming out.
Hi.
As someone who's navigated that really complicated space of kind of giving up the more guaranteed regular salaried job to kind of pursue something that could be a spectacular failure, what kind of advice do you offer, or could you offer to someone trying to decide whether or not to take a chance on something that could not work out?
Good question. I think for me, like, I almost couldn't live with myself not doing what I love. I always think it's better to try something and fail miserably than to have never tried at all. So if you sum it up in that sentence, you know, and I talked to, you know, some startup people. I think those guys are like really brave, and they're artists too, right? Like, because they could be working somewhere for like 200 grand, but they decided to take a chance. And one guy told me, he was like, you know, all you're missing is maybe 2 years of opportunity costs, but you can always go back to, you know, doing something safer. So yeah. You're just only losing a couple years. You're fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just pretend you're in a coma or something if it didn't work out.
All right, next question. Are you experiencing any reverse culture shock now when you go back to
Yes.
China?
Yeah, when I go back to Hong Kong and China. I went back to Hong Kong for the first time in 17 years last year after I shot Crazy Rich Asians. And that I couldn't find an ending for the book. And that trip gave me the ending that I needed for the book. It was culture shock. I'm so used to LA now. Now I'm not used to tall buildings and stuff like that, right? And the people, I'm like, oh my God, this is so anxiety inducing. There's just people everywhere. But there is still a part of me that feels like Hong Kong is always home. Because when I went there was just, I don't know, I felt at peace at something. Because here, like we talked about, if I'm playing ping pong or like playing the violin or like just eating dim sum here, I'll seem a little
Still play the
stereotypical. I try, I dabble. But I'll be like the stereotypical dude here, right? But if I'm just, if I'm eating dim sum in Hong Kong, reading a Chinese newspaper, I'm just another guy. I don't have to explain myself, you know? So there's some kind of safety and a peace there. And it was good to know that there's a part of the world that I can always feel that way. Yeah. Because in America, like, I just became an American citizen last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Still Asian, it's fine. Because, like, I joke about that, but it's true, right? Because nobody in any part of the world, not America, not Italy, not anywhere, not even Japan, will be like, oh, look, that's an American guy. No, because I don't have blonde hair, blue eyes, or like whatever, right?
I don't either.
Okay, but you look way more American than I do, even though we're the same level of American. So I think hopefully, you know, with movies like Crazy Rich Asians, more seeing Asians in media and seeing, you know, a more homogenized place like Google, like this, like people will start seeing Asians as Americans more and more in the future.
It's great.
Hi, Jimmy. First off, I wanted to say it was really freaky looking over at your dad, because my dad...
Me too, yeah, I agree.
Where's this going?
My dad is also a bald Shanghainese man with great glasses.
Zaheni, Daka Zaheni, huh?
Who gets up randomly to take pictures, so it's great to
Yes!
be here. Thank you. And my
Does
other...
he also have a photo shoot whenever he goes to lunch or dinner?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my question is about how you prepared for your role of Jian-Yang.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people could say that you've been preparing for this role your whole life, being Chinese, being an immigrant, but did you do any specific immersive research in this area? For example, going to Stanford classes or immersing yourself in a hacker hostel? And if not, you know, how did you best prepare and learn about the idiosyncrasies of this area?
Thanks. So this past off season, I actually I made HBO like give me like a tour of everything. So I talked to we have a lot of great consultants on the show. That, you know, Dick Costello is one of them. So
To be a PM here, CEO of Twitter. Yep.
Yeah, and then I visited, you know, Google this past summer and I visited Facebook, and more mid-sized companies like Lyft, and which Capital G invested in, and a few places, and I learned a lot. And studying the characters there, it's really cool. And also, just for Jian-Yang, the character, the immigrant character itself, whenever I drive to the lot, I listen to the Chinese radio for like, an hour when I'm driving. 1300 AM, the Mandarin station in LA. That's my jam, So it gets me kind of in that Mandarin mindset. And I also, before I do a scene, I kind of say this mantra to myself in Mandarin. I say, 我不知道, 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 which means I don't know in Mandarin. Which I think it helps me think in Mandarin, first of all, but also in a way, it kind of sums up who Jian-Yang is as a person. Either he actually doesn't know about something, or he doesn't even care to know about it, So yeah, that will be, I guess, my preparation for it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, you've mentioned before that stand-up isn't really a thing in Hong Kong. Do you have any plans to try doing stand-up there? And are you funny in Chinese?
Yeah, stand-up is becoming a thing in Hong Kong now. There's a club that opened up called Takeout Comedy. That's the actual name of the stand-up comedy club. So I would want to go try some stand-up out in Hong Kong, maybe even in Mandarin or Cantonese or something. But it's not as easy as just literally translating my English jokes into a different language. Right. It's more than that. It's cultural differences. They wouldn't understand a lot of stuff that we talk about here. So it'd be kind of a challenge, but maybe in the future, I'll be down to explore that.
Does your dad think you're funny yet?
Do you think I'm funny?
Yeah, he's getting funnier and funnier day by day.
Funnier and funnier day by day.
Still keeps me humble, but there's a...
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks so much for coming today. I know you talked a little bit about your story getting into Hollywood in America, but is there any kind of specific occurrences that you felt really down, or you got a lot of pushback, like racially, or just not fitting into the role? And do you still face that moving forward today?
Yeah, when I didn't get the loud Japanese host part, I was gonna... I think one of the sadder things is like a part perfectly describes you and you still don't get it. It's like short Asian Chinese with glasses and long hair. And you go in and you audition, you still don't get the part. You're like, wow, I'm bad. Like the open ethnicity part, I get it. There are plenty of options. But you know what? At the end of the day, I never try to blame it on the fact that I'm Asian, even though that might be true. Even though people could be racist, or they're actually looking for a white guy, but they have to audition an Asian guy or something. But it doesn't benefit me at all if I try to blame that on me being Asian. So I just try to, be better the next audition. If I'm not funny on stage, I try to write better jokes and come back the next day and not use being Asian as a crutch, even though it might be true sometimes, right? So yeah, that's how I look at it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Jimmy.
Totally.
I'm actually a really huge fan of yours. Other than Silicon Valley, I actually gone through all the videos I can find of yours on YouTube.
Wow, thanks, man.
Yeah, I even checked your YouTube comments. It's kind of creepy.
We'll keep him a safe distance away.
Good guy.
So I'm super excited to be here. My question would be, further in the future, would you more look into continue your path as a comedian, or doing both comedian and being an actor in the show business?
Yeah, I think both, and more writing also, and creating my own IP, because still there's not a lot of material out there for Asians to do. You have to come up with your own stuff. So hopefully one of my goals is turning this into a TV show, maybe like a version of Atlanta, but our version of it, right? And that will probably reach a more mainstream audience, because stand-up still doesn't translate to a lot of Asians, especially. I never grew up knowing what stand-up is. My dad didn't know what really stand-up was. So I think turning into a TV show or something would reach a broader, more mainstream audience.
Didn't you think you did a talk show?
Talk show. My dad still calls it a talk show. I'm like, I'm going to Laugh Factory tonight. He's like, what, to do talk show?
Thank you. Sorry, one more thing.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I also have a question about the problems you mentioned about Asian being minority in the show business.
Mm-hmm.
As you gain more popularity and influence to your audience, is there something you want to do more about that? Maybe what kind of actions you would take to change that kind of putting a great actor into a sort of a stereotypical role in a TV show? And
Yeah, I think what I can do is just creating my own material and putting myself in it, and giving myself jobs that maybe other people would have given to Scarlett Johansson or Matt Damon, you know what I mean? So I think it's really important to create and do what you do best, right? Whereas it's right, do stand-up, act. So I always just try to concentrate on being the best I can. When there is an opportunity, I can nail it. Because there's a lot of groups out there like, NAACP, CAPE, for the Asian advancements and stuff like that. And they're doing a lot of groundwork in, representation and make sure the right article comes out and there's no like racist commercials or anything, right? Or whatever, right? So they are doing their job, but that's not necessarily my job, right? My job is to really nail the opportunities that they create for us. And really, when I go into an audition room, not just being the best Asian actor, but being the best actor in that room so I can get that role.
It is kind of amazing, though. You've gone in just a span of a couple of years from literally sleeping on the couch, right, paying $300 in rent, scraping it together, driving Uber, to now having the weight of, representing all Asians and what that means on TV and in film. And do you do parts with an accent or not? And how do you create opportunities? Like, how do you just deal with that pressure?
You try to not think about it.
Yeah. So that's why I'm
and then you have a panic attack at 2 a.m. No, I'm just enjoying it, man. Like, this is really fun to see all of you guys show up. Like, I never imagined this would happen, or I would imagine this happening in the future. But it's just great. I'm just trying to enjoy the moment. Like, it's getting a little busy, but still, I never try to put the weight of representing Asians on my back, because that doesn't make me better at my job, So I just try to entertain.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great
Man.
to see you in person.
Thank you. Love this
You have
guy.
to sign his book.
Of course. Love this guy.
Go ahead.
Hi, Jimmy. So I think your story really resonates with me because I dropped out of medical school, and for like 2 years, my mom was like, you know what? You're never going to get a girl to want to marry you if you're not a doctor. I was like under a lot of stress.
Are you married now?
No. I'm single, so maybe she's right. So I got two questions. The first question is, if you never got the big break on Silicon Valley, you ended up being a miserable failure, like you said. What do you think you would have ended up doing? And my second question is, so do you have groupies now that you're like an Asian celebrity?
The last guy.
Well, the last guy, I guess. Yeah. If I didn't get Silicon Valley, I think I'll still be working hard to try to get something, right? And I always try to put have different things in the pipeline. Like, if maybe I never became a really good actor, I would have just tried to concentrate on stand-up or concentrate on writing or something like that. But I don't see there's a world where I would have went back to Smith Barney or anything like that. I think, people have a misconception of like Hollywood or the arts is luck, or it's nepotism, or something magical needs to happen for you to make it happen. But at the end of the day, if you work hard enough and if you're good enough, it's gonna happen one way or another, right? Especially in the stand-up world. If you just get good enough, at least you can do some colleges. At least you can make ends meet, right? You might not be the next Dave Chappelle, but you can make it a job. So I think that's where the disconnect is with maybe the older generation and also how a lot of people think of the arts. Yeah, groupies, I don't know. I still use Bumble sometimes.
Thank you.
Hi, Jimmy. My name is Zhang, and the other part of your story really resonated with me, the immigrant part. So, as an immigrant myself who's been living in the US for almost 2 decades, one question really trips me up a lot, and it's, where are you from? So, Jimmy, where are you from? Like, how?
It depends who's asking that question, right? If it's an Uber driver that I don't really want to talk to, I'll just say LA, and that's the end of that. And a lot of people like to ask you, no, where are you originally from? And people take offense to that, and I get it. Like, I wish we don't live in a world like that. But I'm proud of where I'm from. Like, I'll tell people I grew up in Hong Kong, and then I came here. So if they want to hear the long story of that, I sell them a book.
You too can buy it on Google Play or at a bookstore near you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anywhere you want. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi.
I was wondering if you're still keeping in touch with your high school friends, the Misfits, and other folks who knew you before Silicon Valley, and what are they up to now, and do they think you're funny?
Yeah, you know what? They're still some of my best friends, man. My buddy Jeremy, Persian guy, he's in construction now, and but he wants to be a writer, so we're actually writing something together because he knows my life as well as I do. Yeah, and you know, my friend who lives in Irvine now, he came out to support one of my book signings, and it was really sweet to see that. And yeah, they still live pretty close to me, and still some of my best friends. And it's good to have people like that to keep you honest. I think, like they'll check me. They're like, Jimmy, you acting too Hollywood, man. You know, why are you going out to buy a gold chain? What's wrong with you? So I stopped at one gold chain. Thanks.
Hey, Jimmy. My name's Tony. Big fan of the show. I'm excited to check out this book. Also, being the child of like immigrant parents, I'm curious to see how the conversations or process went with you talking to your parents about wanting to, you know, leave Smith Barney. Disappointing your parents, you said, you know, for a couple of years. Like, what was that like talking to your dad, and how did that all go?
It's hard. I think also in an Asian family, we're not as open in a way like the Western family. Like in an Asian family, like we don't necessarily say "I love you" or "I'm proud of you," things like that on the surface. Whereas, you know, it's a very casual thing for my American friends to say, "Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you," right? So, oh, thanks. So, you know, it's hard, man. You know, I sought some therapy, and you know, you have to kind of just like kind of step up. You don't want it to be like a thing where like you don't end up talking to somebody, right? So it's like an ongoing conversation. I think me and my dad now has a good communication where like we talk all the time, even about stuff that I make him talk about stuff he doesn't want to talk about sometimes, you know, like stuff from the book, and he read the book and stuff like that. So sometimes it's up to us to maybe force that conversation on him.
Yeah. Was there a point that you felt you had to kind of like earn his acceptance at all, or was he kind of?
I'm past that.
Okay.
I'm past that now, I think. Yeah.
But you got him to try acting, right?
Yes, he's an actor. He played my dad in Patriots Day. He's a pretty good actor.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, Jimmy. I'm Huang. My question is actually kind of similar to that last one, but having Asian parents means that there are a lot of expectations. They expect you to go to a good school, get a good job, and then get married after school and have kids before 30.
Right.
Has your parents' expectation changed as your career grow, and how do you deal with those expectations, I guess?
Huh.
I think there's a lot of people feeling similar pressures.
Yeah. Has your expectation changed, Dad? Do you want me to have kids like soon?
I would like you to apply for a job in Google.
Does anyone want to hire Jimmy at Google?
So there you have it. Yeah. I mean, maybe there is, I think. I don't know, but I try not let it get to me, you know. Thanks.
Hi, Jimmy. I'm Sean Lin. Thanks for sharing the stories today. So my question is, now you've gained lots of popularity and fame, but is there one? At what point do you think that you think you're actually going to be famous someday from TV show? And at what point do you start to actually believe that you know you're gonna be, you know what you're doing, and you're gonna be good in acting and stand up?
I think being an actor and like being a stand-up, you're always kind of insecure. And it's not like an absolute like, oh, now I'm a good actor. I think I'm very confident in my abilities now, ever since, you know, a few seasons in Silicon Valley and other stuff I've done. But it's you always try to just get better, you know, and not suck. So I don't know.
Was the process doing TV versus a movie different for you?
Not too much, because Silicon Valley is a single camera, so it shoots like a movie. So I think that gave us a lot of practice. And you know, Silicon Valley is like going to school for me. Yeah. At the acting school I never had, so that was awesome. So maybe one day I'll sell out. I don't know. We'll see. As the rappers would say.
Were there nights when you cry in the evenings because you think that it's difficult?
I cry in the evenings?
Do you cry?
I didn't know that.
Do you cry? It's a question. Do you cry? Have you ever cried from the pressure or the fear of not making it?
No, I don't think so. It wasn't like the fear, like I get anxiety from it, but it's never like crying. Like sometimes I cry tears of joy when I realize how blessed I am. That's when I cry.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Hi. Okay. My question. My question is, actually, I like Jian-Yang this role very much, but it's. I think it's very different with the guys I met in Silicon Valley. I think, like me, I'm an Asian guy and in software engineer in Silicon Valley. But I think most Asian guys I met are very smart and they get things done. But Jian-Yang is totally different with that.
As to say he's stupid.
Yeah. Do you know that? Oh, I know the role is not decided by you, it's by director or some other guys. But I mean, do you know what's the true software engineer in Silicon Valley? The Asian software engineer.
She's inviting you to do a Google engineering immersion program.
Yeah. Just Chinese folks asking tough questions, right? I mean, you gotta still play the comedy of it, right? Like if it's just a dude sitting in front of a computer making really awesome apps and really successful making hundreds, it's not funny.
Okay.
So it's, I think, funny to make it a satire of, you know, he has some of the mannerisms of the Silicon Valley people, but he still kind of has the balls and he's kind of steps up and he's kind of an asshole. And, you know, he's kind of an opportunist in a way, you know. I think Jian-Yang can code pretty well. The not hot dog app, he just made it. You know?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe time for 2 more questions.
Cool.
Thank you for coming, Jimmy. My name is Vicky. I'm an ABC, American-born Chinese. My parents are from Taipei. I grew up exactly kind of the similar path that you may have been, and until I got into Google, my mom was disappointed with me.
What did you do before that?
Well, I actually went through the recruiting program, university recruiting, so I actually went to UCSD and went through the Career Center and actually applied to work in AdWords.
I never stepped foot in that Career Center.
So it was my first job out of college. It was the only job I applied for, and I was like, I hope this works out. And my mom was like, you better hope it works out. So now to this day, even my grandparents are like, don't leave Google. Whatever you do, don't leave. And I don't think they even know what I do. So it's like there is an expectation. I totally understand kind of what a lot of us are going through. The question I had for you was around children, your future children. I have a child now, and I grew up going to Chinese school, doing all the traditional Chinese things we do. I find it challenging to figure out how to raise my child in America and also instilling the basic cultural traditions I grew up with. And I feel like there's some responsibility on my end to do that. So my question to you would be, imagine yourself being your dad one day, having your own children. How would you go about making sure that your own children don't lose their own cultural identity, given that they're not from Hong Kong or Shanghai?
Do you speak Mandarin or?
I do. 讲国语.
Oh, okay. So do you speak to your kids in Mandarin?
So she's only 14 months.
Or I mean, will you think?
Yeah. No, I'm planning on sending her to Chinese school.
Yeah,
which is what I'm
that's
used
very
to.
cool because your kid's gonna learn. This is what my dad told me. Like, your kid's gonna learn English in school.
Right.
You might as well speak to him in Mandarin. You know, like I see, you know, some of my relatives, like they insist on speaking maybe English to the kids, so the kid aren't gonna be foreign like they were. You know, but that the kids grew up in America. He's gonna speak English. So I think the language itself is very important. You know, I think everyone's trying to learn Mandarin now.
BET still.
Yeah, BET. Show him some BET.
Okay.
So I think, look, like even like people, actors, and people in media, we're trying, you know. So hopefully, as he or she, as she's grown up, there will be more material out there of a positive, cool Asian representation. You know, read her this book.
Yeah. I mean, we only have Ni Hao Kai Lan right now, but I'm sure there's more opportunities and things for her to learn from. But yeah, I agree. I think language is part of it, but also the traditional sense. I don't know if you plan on celebrating certain holidays with your future children and
Yeah, I would
teaching
love
them.
to.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not one to give parenting advice. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
You and your dad could write children's books, though.
No,
That'd be a cool thing.
no, let's not do that. Let's not do that.
All right, last question.
I feel so incredibly grateful. I'm the last one, so like I made it.
This better be good.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long one. First of all, hi, Dad. I mean, I didn't get the hot dog signature on the book, but that's not a complaint.
There's only one.
Right, yeah. Kudos to your comments on the Crazy Rich Asians being the Black Panther for Asians. I feel strong about that too. This is about thought leadership. So I'm also 1.5 generation Asian Canadian and went to Canada when I was 14. My voice might be shaking right now. Sorry, guys. Too excited.
You're good.
You're great.
Yeah, thought leadership. I also really like how you were saying the difference between Asian-born ABCs here and the 1.5 generations. I see there's a change of like ABC tolerating 1.5 generation more as Asia's rising, specifically in China after 2005. There's still more to be done. And the thought leadership part is, I don't want to divide anyone with like all these labels, like also like diversity is like a talk in Google, like globally, but like, how do you just like tell people like we're just the same and like we're all immigrant and you should be proud of who you are without like if they haven't been to your shoes?
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell people that. I think even if you turn on the TV, like something like the immigration issue is so politicized. There's two sides and there's two people arguing and they never get anywhere, right? And that's why I kind of wanted to write a book like this where it's just me telling my story and hopefully it humanizes the immigrant experience, right? And so maybe people can see it from my point of view and in a kind of humorous, lighthearted way and really understand what it was like to be an immigrant. It's not always sob stories like or whatever, but you know, in a real way, like as if this is a real person. So I think that's important to me, and it's hard to convince people, but sometimes it's easier. It's like pitching jokes to the writer's room. You don't want to tell them, hey, this is the joke I want to do, but you want to kind of make them think they came up with that idea, right? You should do that with your bosses. You should make them think it's their idea, and how do you do that? Is maybe by telling them a story through different mediums, right? Stand-up books, or just in person telling them a story. So I think and just showing them like who you are, letting them know you as an immigrant, and I think that does more work than arguing with someone and shoving a point down their throat.
I think we're all very lucky that we get to hear your story in writing,
Thanks, guys.
TV, and in the movie. Thank you.